Hi, Eric here with 30 by 40 Design Workshop, returning this week with a viewer question submitted from Casper in the Netherlands, who writes, I'm 15 years old and I've decided I want to become an architect. I live very close to the Technical University of Delft, and I'm pretty sure I want to study architecture there. I have a few questions though. What are the most useful skills that I can train for right now? What are the things that will give me an advantage over other students? And what are some good books I should read to prepare me? All right, so what skills can you develop right now to prepare yourself for architecture school? First off, communication skills. Verbal and nonverbal or visual communication, things like drawing, graphics, and writing. Now, architecture school repeatedly places you in front of your peers and asks you to present your ideas visually and verbally. I'm not sure why, but as a first-year architecture student, this came as a bit of a surprise to me. I presumed I'd be holed up drawing and building models at my drafting table, and then I'd be graded solely on the merits of those ideas. It was pretty naive of me, but I quickly learned that being an architect meant I had to convince others my ideas were good enough to invest real dollars in so they could be realized in the physical world. To be able to communicate clearly, both verbally and visually, are core skills. Now let's begin with the visual ones first. So graphics. You'll want to build expertise in a couple of areas. First, drawing and sketching. At a time when the trend is for everything to be done digitally, sketching still has immense value. The great Italian architect Carlo Scarpa began each of his design studios at the University of Venice with a lesson on how to sharpen a pencil, saying, "From the pencil arises all great architecture." Sketching is like breathing to an architect, and we carry sketchbooks everywhere with us. Buy a sketchbook and become comfortable with sketching anything and everything. Document the real world, ideas for follies or products or solutions to problems. Force yourself to sketch, make it a habit, even if everything looks horrible when you start. With a little practice, you'll begin developing a personal style, and you'll cultivate this lifelong relationship with pencils, pens, ink, graphite, and the implements of drawing. You'll discover you'll have favorites, and when you reach school, you'll have already begun developing a language for communicating your ideas at a higher level than your peers. So to inspire you, you should check out the Modmin's YouTube channel, which offers an innovative take on the architectural sketch, with monthly competitions you can participate in. So these mini competitions, they select a single well-known work of architecture, and they ask viewers to submit a drawing of it. Next, you want to become familiar with computer graphics programs. You should learn Photoshop and InDesign at a very minimum, and you can add Illustrator and Lightroom if you're so inclined. So a student subscription to Adobe's Creative Cloud is about $20 per month. And a working knowledge of these programs will allow you to focus on the content of your presentations when you're in architecture school, rather than struggling to get them to do what you're envisioning. So for a look at how architects use these programs to create renderings and presentations, you might check out the YouTube channels of Alex Hogreff. There's Photoshop Architect or Archi9 Visualization. Now the next skill is modeling. This one breaks down into sort of two subcomponents. There's computer modeling, where you'll want to know programs like Rhino and or SketchUp. And then there's physical modeling. And if you've been watching my video series on model making, you'll know what a fanboy of physical modeling I am. Model making is of equal importance to my design process as hand sketching. And if you develop this as a skill, I can guarantee you'll stand out among your classmates. Next up is writing. Writing is a habit and a skill that will make your life easier no matter what you're doing. Writing forces you to articulate ideas and arguments differently than graphic means. It's so useful for me that if I'm stuck on a design problem, one of the tricks I use to overcome the block is to write. The process of converting ideas to words distills and consolidates them, making them accessible to others. As an architect, you'll write project briefs and descriptions, magazine articles, white papers, specifications, drawing notes, and this is in addition to all the other regular communication your professional life will require. Now, I personally find writing an enjoyable extension of my architecture practice, one which enhances design and, like this video, which began by writing a script, can be used to help others. Now, there's also verbal presentation skills. Ideally, your visual presentation will communicate your ideas without an additional word by you, but you'll always begin design crits or client meetings or planning board meetings with a verbal presentation. You'll need to be prepared to defend not only your design, but perhaps how it conforms to existing regulations, or why you absolutely must use black zinc on that facade that faces Main Street. Practice here can take many forms: debate classes, theater, or assuming leadership roles in your school and community. It might also include making short films or recording videos or Instagram stories. You might practice teaching something you know to others, narrating stories, and concisely conveying your ideas. And know that your architectural training will include many opportunities for daily practice too. Now, aside from your communication core skills, you'll need to be good at problem solving. Architects are asked to solve problems at a variety of scales every day. You'll be pressed to think laterally and develop multiple solutions to a problem rather than just one. You'll begin by solving your client's needs with your design. Then you'll develop the construction details and drawings. And from that, you'll solve the myriad of questions that arise as a result of the design decisions you've made along the way as the building is constructed. So if problem solving doesn't excite or interest you, practicing architecture will likely be pretty difficult. I typically spend 1 day a week touring the projects I have in construction, and these site visits are an important check-in on progress and a way to connect with the contractors who are really acting as my hands in the building process. This is done in part to ensure the project is being constructed to specification, but also to answer many questions that a good contractor will generate trying to accurately build from a set of drawings. Construction is naturally a complex endeavor, and it's impossible for architects to draw every connection and detail of a building. No client would be able to afford it. So weekly site visits are a chance to problem solve in real time and resolve things the drawings haven't called out. Design and construction present many unexpected opportunities, and architects are asked to problem solve every day to capitalize on those. Now, you'll notice I didn't mention anything about math or physics. Of course, you'll need a basic understanding of mathematics and physics, but a secondary level of education will adequately prepare you for what lies ahead in university. The fact is, you don't have to be good at math or physics to be an architect. I took calculus, physics, and structures classes in university, but I was certainly no math whiz. How much of this training do I use every day in practice? Very little. Architects are more like composers and conductors than mathematicians. The composer writes the music and the conductor assembles and directs the musicians to interpret it. Architecture isn't possible without other collaborators who help our vision come to life. Clients, engineers, government agencies, craftspeople. I have a structural engineer on my design team for every project who's much better at math than I am, and his training allows me to do things that otherwise wouldn't be possible. If you're interested in the engineering side of architecture, like a Santiago Calatrava, for example, you have the opportunity to follow that interest too. For me, I was much more interested in materials and the narrative quality of building than engineering. You simply might not know at this point either, and that's the wonderful thing about pursuing an architectural education. It will help you to discover where your interests lie. The skills I listed are all meta skills. Skills that improve and apply to many aspects of life. For someone in high school who may or may not decide to attend architecture school in the future, meta skills build a foundation for a variety of vocations. The best books are the ones that inspire you, and they won't always be architecture books. One of my favorites is On Writing by Stephen King. Not knowing your personal taste in architecture, you can safely start by studying the work and manifestos of the greats. Corbusier, Mies, Wright, Kahn, Scarpa, Siza, Zumthor, Aalto, and Ando. And if you're struggling to know who's important, check out the list of Pritzker Prize-winning architects for a primer. Look too at their sketches, how they draw and conceptualize. Go and buy a roll of trace and learn from the greats by tracing their floor plans and their elevations. This will kind of preload a tactile sense for what it feels like to draw the forms and shapes that comprise their architecture. You'll develop your own style with time, but for now, it's good to copy the masters. Now here's another few specific recommendations that inspired me. Peter Zumthor's Buildings and Projects 1985 to 2013. It's a set of 5 monographs in total. And if this collection exceeds your budget, just pick up anything that grabs your eye, or even study his work online. There are lots of YouTube videos. Zumthor is a gifted narrator. Look at the materials he uses and how he assembles them to describe the essence of a place or a building's function. It's deeply emotional and moving architecture. A few other personal favorites are Lebbeus Wood's Anarchitecture, Architecture as a Political Act. This book will challenge any preconceived notions of what architecture can look like. It's a lesson in darkness and the creative use of form. It's graphically powerful, and it's just brimming with these chipboard models, which I can't seem to get enough of. There's also Tom Kundig's work too. As a residential architect with a modern industrial taste, his work is an ideal that I'm striving for and learning from every day. Read about his concept of hot rodding and gizmos to get started. And lastly, the Bible for any new or old student of architecture. Frank Ching's Form, Space, and Order is a trusty reference manual and reminder of the founding principles of our craft. He's a gifted technical illustrator and visual communicator. Now, beyond books, consider listening to architecture lectures on YouTube or enroll in free online architecture courses at edX, offered by MIT, Harvard GSD, and there's even a few from Delft near you. You'll develop a sense for the spoken language of architecture doing this. Now, consuming architecture visually in books, online, and in video is fantastic, but far more useful is to actually visit places. Architecture is experiential. When we tour buildings, we rely on all our senses to build an impression of what it is to be and move through the space the architecture defines. In my third year of architecture school, I had a professor, Paul Lucas, who changed the way I thought about architecture. He taught me that more than acting purely as form maker, the architect's job was to shape space in light. He taught me about parallax, how moving through space changes our perceptions of objects and their relationships. If you stick with it long enough, you'll have this realization too. Probably after many hours of study, late nights in studio, working with cardboard and graphite and pixels, speaking with professors, and experiencing the mechanics of how architects transform ideas into built work. Follow this advice and begin developing these meta skills, and then let your architectural education lead you where it may. The random collisions of ideas, colleagues, professors, and conversations at 3 a.m. in the studio are part of the magic of an architectural education. You can't anticipate these, nor would you want to. The majority of architecture students don't become architects, and that's okay. The skills you'll acquire will reward you in many different professions. Cheers, Casper. Thanks for writing. Now I want you to go make things.